Senator Hillary Clinton supporting and reassuring India, co-chairman of the Senate India Caucus, Mr. Zimmerman. Your candidate is being charged by a number of people with supporting India in the use of H-1B visas, wanting to raise those visas at the expense of American workers. What in the world is she thinking about?
Well, you know, Lou, even though I'm supporting...
This is going to be good.
Even though I'm supporting her, I still can be objective and agree with her. And objectively speaking, what she's proposing...
Did you just say be objective and agree with her?
Absolutely. Not inconsistent. Got to get that clear. What she's proposing... Remember, she's voted against CAFTA. She's opposed the Korean trade agreement.
Right.
What she's proposing is raising the price of these visas and putting... Because there is a short-term need. And she's also proposing more funding for education and job training.
For who?
For American students and American job training so that these jobs can be filled. There is a shortage. This is legal immigration. And HB1
legal only because it exists. What is unlawful is what American business, well, actually it's Indian business, is doing in the United States with.
But there is a shortage.
7 out of 10 of these visas are going to Indian companies. They're hiring people in which there is no shortage. Talking about high technology jobs, 4 out of 5 of these jobs under H-1B visas are Category 1 low skill work. It is an absolute shame what the Immigration Department is doing, what the Department of Homeland Security is doing, and for Senator Hillary Clinton to add her imprimatur to this issue it has to be heartbreaking for a lot of working Americans.
If I just may respond to that briefly.
Please.
Very simply put, no one has been a stronger advocate of growing the economy and the manufacturing industry in America than she and some of her other colleagues in both parties, and I give them credit for it. This is truly about filling a short-term need. It is not about in any way undermining the American worker. In fact, what she's doing and what she's proposing along with bipartisanly growing the economy and growing funding for education, I think is really critical to meet the demand.
Errol Lewis, what do you think?
Like so much.
Did that sound like...
I didn't persuade him at all, did I?
It sounded like an explanation, but what we need is not an explanation, but I think we need independent studies, we need congressional hearings, we need to air this issue out, not simply announce that, well, this is going to be the way we do it, or else they're going to all go to Vancouver. What we need to ask is, if they go to Vancouver, so what? Where will the jobs come from? Who's going to be harmed by them? Is there in fact going to be a brain drain? So in other words, you're an empiricist, Errol. You actually want to understand the facts. You want to know the truth and the reality of what is now America for American working people in our middle class, just not these out-of-touch, absurd, ambitious elite. Well, the way I put it is, I've covered politics enough to know that in the heat of a campaign, every statement has to be scrutinized very closely.
Well, if you really want to...
You know something? I have to admire the rhetoric here. That was...
I'll give you some.
You were talking about explanations. That was absolutely a piece of art.
I'll give you straight rhetoric. Straight rhetoric. This has to do with Indian fundraising. Mrs. Clinton is not president yet, so she can't sell pardons, but she certainly can sell visas. And I think that's what this is about. If you track the various fundraising activities going on in the Indian community for Mrs. Clinton, it's in direct proportion to her support for this.
Just in all fairness, what in the world is George Bush selling? He's wanting to
He has nothing to sell anymore. He's got 18 months to basically tread water and get out of there.
Well, he has no political capital with which to buy anything. That's fairly clear, Errol.
Yeah, I think, again, what we just saw with the collapse of the immigration debate, any last pieces of it, and I guess this last little H-1B visa flap is just the last dying gasp of the failed immigration debate. It just shows that we're going to have to sort of tear up the script and start all over again.
Hallelujah. Hallelujah. What I love are these idiots in mainstream media, some of the elite Eastern establishment print publications in particular, and I'm thinking of 2 newspapers which come readily to mind, the Washington Post and the New York Times, crying their little hearts out that the Congress did not pass that dadgum piece of ignorant legislation. It is unbelievable that they still refuse to examine the empirical reality in this country. Don't you find, as a newsman, it's absolutely breathtaking
Well, it happens at every level of government. Whether you're looking at
but I'm talking about the fourth estate here, partner. We're the folks who are supposed to be representing the people. Their interest in providing some independent oversight of what this government does to people.
Yeah, I think the public, or the assumption is that the public is impatient with these questions of process. Were there enough hearings? Were there enough studies? Have we really aired it out? People just want to know what's going to happen.
It's a simple count. Right. Zero, none, nada.
But the other point, too, is
forgive the expression.
The people's voices were heard. And
absolutely.
And the Congress did respond. The system in this case did work. And I think that was most important.
You mean the American people's voice?
Absolutely.
The citizens of the United States. You don't mean, for example, the H-1B visa holders that corporate America, Bill Gates and Senator Hillary Clinton would like to raise the ante on.
As you know, I thought that immigration bill was a bad bill, and I spoke against it on this program.
You can't get on the good side.
Not tonight.
You've had a bad day.
I stand
You're not doing so well either, Ed Rollins.
Let me just say this. The State Department and Homeland Security can't even get Americans passports who are
it's absurd.
Passports. So the mere idea that they can step forward and promise all these things that they're going to do is absurd. And I think the American public has a right to demand how any of these bills are going to work, and I think how much they're going to cost, and they haven't done that. They failed miserably.
But you're seeing a level of accountability in the Congress that really is, for the first time, long overdue. And I look in particular to the hearings that are going to be held regarding the Department of Justice and the political firing of the U.S. attorneys.
Which doesn't matter. We have gone over and over again. The reality is there's not.
These two are not going.
On any given day, the 93 U.S. attorneys can be fired at the will by the President of the United States.
But they were appointed in the
past. Jeffrey Toobin, our senior legal analyst, says this is a ridiculous issue for confrontation between.
He's absolutely right. He's absolutely right. I mean, 20 years ago, the Congress gave immunity to Oliver North and asked him to talk about what he knew, putting aside those questions and what they thought would be a compromise, and he got up and rubbed their face in it.
This cuts to the core of our democracy. Whether, in fact, we're going to have a Department of Justice that's going to be a political operation, or whether it's going to be an objective law enforcement division.
Robert Zimmerman, Errol Lewis, Ed Rollins.
Thank you.
Thank you for shedding light as well as heat this evening. Appreciate it.